Hello, friends. I'm Kerry Pharr. Welcome to In Your Corner. Dani Williamson is a very sought-after health practitioner in the Nashville, Tennessee area. Dani, specifically, I guess, Franklin Brentwood, right?
Yes.
But welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. What an honor to be here.
Well, it's so nice to see you. And I've got to go back and tell people a little bit about you before we start. You know, I had the privilege of sitting in on the Sunday school class of the great motivational speaker, Zig Ziglar. And Zig was one of the, most compelling people I've ever met in my life. But Zig said that he was 45 years of age, in debt, and considered himself a failure until he found the secret of success. And that secret was that he gave his life to Jesus Christ, and then he started teaching biblical principles. Now, I've heard Dani's story. I actually read Dani's story, and she had something kind of similar. Up until she was about 40, she was sick. She did not know how to get well. She'd visited a lot of doctors. And friends, there's a lot of people out there right now that I'm speaking to because you call us asking for prayer calls. You call us asking for prayer. Well, today we're going to get you some answers on your health because Dani's going to tell us your story. Dani, tell us a little bit about you and how you came to find healing for your body.
Oh, wow. It's a great story. When I was 40, I actually was standing on my front porch in Paducah, Kentucky, and I received 2 letters that day in the mailbox that completely changed the entire trajectory of my life for me. I was recently divorced. I had 2 little children. And the first letter said, congratulations, you have $56 more in food stamps.
Wow.
Right, to feed your kids this month. The very next letter, standing on that porch, it was cold, it was rainy that morning, I'll never forget it, was, congratulations, you've been accepted to the nurse practitioner program at Vanderbilt University.
The Harvard of the South.
You bet. On food stamps, headed to Vanderbilt, 40 years old. And I had spent, so fast forward 4 years, right? I had a traditional allopathic degree, right? Regular traditional nurse practitioner medicine. And I had spent 24 years prior to that with irritable bowel syndrome, lupus, diagnosed with lupus in my 30s. I was depressed, so I was on antidepressants. I had chronic itching. 24 years, 10 doctors, before a doctor ever leaned into me and said, Dani, what are you eating? Do you know your diet controls your disease? And it changed my entire life. It changed my patients' lives, my children's lives, I hope my grandchildren's lives, by those questions. Because I was taught in school, you treat symptoms. You have heartburn, you use Nexium. Now, there's a time and a place for things like that, right? You have a migraine headache, you need migraine medicine. You have joint pain, you need ibuprofen. Those are symptoms. I was never taught that there's a root cause for your illness and that you're not broken. You weren't born sick. You turned that on. I wasn't born with irritable bowel syndrome. I had a rough childhood growing up, and that started, the IBS. I wasn't born depressed. I wasn't born with lupus. Every single bit of that was turned on through decades of dysfunction. And the majority of that was a bad diet. And that's how I start in my practice with my patients. That's the first thing that we do is diet.
Now, in your practice, do you find that the root cause is, first of all, the diet, but the diet is causing inflammation?
You bet.
And it's the inflammation that's causing all of these issues.
Do you know that we now know that 100% of the root cause of 100% of all chronic lifestyle diseases are what you've turned on through your lifestyle? High blood pressure, diabetes, right? High cholesterol, things like that. 100% the root cause of those diseases is inflammation. It's an inflammatory process.
And folks, it's called by, I put it on a Facebook post the other day and somebody said, what is the SAD? The standard American diet is what's causing these problems, Dani.
You bet it is.
Speak to that.
I tell my patients every single day, what's at the end of your fork is way more powerful than what's at the bottom of your pill bottle. It's as simple as that. We are eating packaged, processed, bagged, canned, fake, tubed, man-made food. If your food is coming from a factory, from a plant that was trucked in on a truck, it's killing you. It's as simple as that. It is creating systemic inflammation from the head down.
So you're talking about anything processed.
Processed. That's right. So there are 7 foods that we know are the top 7 inflammatory foods in the country. And those are the first things I ask people to cut back on or cut out. Those foods are gluten, dairy, soy, corn, sugar, eggs, and peanuts. Those foods are the basis of the standard American diet. My patients look at me and they say, well, what am I going to eat, Dani? That's all I eat. Well, there are hundreds of other fruits and vegetables for you to eat. So we try to really focus on not what you can't eat, what can you eat? Do you know we eat the same 5 meals our entire life? Pretty much. 5 meals. That's about all we do. We eat the same 5 things over and over.
Meat and potatoes?
You bet.
Or
That's
bread.
Right. And we feed our kids the same 5 meals their entire life. Our body is designed for diversity. God made literally hundreds of fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, fish, chicken, lamb, turkey for us to eat. How often do you go to the grocery and pick up a rutabaga? How often?
No.
When's the last time you bought a parsnip?
Yeah.
Or a turnip? I made turnips the other day and I was sharing that on Instagram. I did turnips, roasted turnips, and then I did turnip greens. I cut the greens off and did the turnip greens. We don't do that very often. We very seldom go buy an artichoke and cook an artichoke, or so we have to start eating more diversity. We are we're very emotional about food. Changing your diet is the hardest thing that you will ever do.
I've seen people dying of cancer, and I'd said, look, I can show you something that'll help you with that. I don't want it if I got to change my diet.
Exactly
You've seen
right.
it.
And cancer feeds on sugar. We know that. We have the research. We have decades of clinical evidence that shows that cancer feeds on sugar. And what do people eat when they're stressed?
Yeah.
Sugar.
I'm guilty.
Yeah.
In fact, if I could get rid of sugar, I could be called the thin man. That is probably the hardest thing in the world for me.
You bet.
So what do we do? I mean, you know, we're all on this. We're locked into this doggone standard American diet, and we're all addicted to it. You've got some steps how people can get rid of this stuff and improve their health.
That's exactly right. So I work on, in my clinic, 6 steps to healing. And that's what it's called, Dani's 6 steps to healing. Eat well, sleep well, move well, poop well, decrease stress, and cultivate community. Those are the 6 steps that I talk to patients about. Eating well. And it comes back to basics, right? And as we were talking before we started this, I'm not recreating the wheel here. This is old news. Daniel knew this in the Bible 2,000 years ago, right? When he said, feed us pulse and water, right? Vegetables and water for 10 days. So we start with...
Because they didn't want to be defiled by the king's meat. So
that's
they went
exactly
to
right. The food of the
diet.
king's palace.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? Now, I'm not vegetarian, and I do like meat, but I tend to eat more vegetables than I do meat. I ask patients to start a Mediterranean diet. And what's a Mediterranean diet? Well, that's the food. That's everything that we can eat, right? Vegetables, nuts, seeds, fish. That's the food they eat in the Mediterranean, right? Europe, Greece, all over there, right? Italy. And the people who live in the blue zones, who live the longest, they eat a Mediterranean diet. And that's fresh, 1 ingredient food. That's the key to what I teach people is you eat 1 ingredient food.
All right, so
cooking from scratch.
1 ingredient food, you're talking about a chicken wing.
You bet.
Or a pork, pork's not the best source of meat.
Well, but it's not horrible
Yeah.
if you eat sustainably sourced pork, right? Like I know my pork farmer, I know my pig farmer, because I go to the Franklin Farmers Market here and I buy my pork from the farmer. So I'm a big proponent of farmers markets and trying to eat in season, right?
Yeah.
Strawberries aren't meant to be eaten 12 months out of the year. Neither are grapes, right? They're meant to be eaten in season. If we will eat in season, and people are overwhelmed with their and I tell patients, if your cabinets are covered with packaged, processed, bagged food. If your food will still be there next year, that's fake food. You need food
It's
in your refrigerator.
It's kept it there.
That's right. And on your countertop that's going to be bad next week.
And you need to eat it while it's fresh.
You bet. You eat it while it's fresh and you cook it from scratch. One ingredient. There's not much that olive oil, salt, and pepper won't make taste incredible. And you can roast every vegetable known to man in the oven or the air fryer. Real simple. Just simple food. That's all. It's not rocket science.
You know, I was in the Dominican Republic on a short-term mission trip a week ago, and we went into this village to feed these people. We cooked food to feed 30 families. And there was a lady in that village called Mama Lone that kind of works for the government, and she wasn't wealthy by any means, but she had a little bit more than everybody else. And we were there without food, and she got in the kitchen, her and a couple of helpers, and they fixed yuca, which I'd never eaten before.
Yes.
It's a starch.
Yes, it is a starch.
They boiled bananas,
yes.
Green and ripe. They once they boiled them, they taste like potatoes. They were not sweet at all.
Yes.
Then they had some kind of sweet potato, and they actually fixed a little pork and a little chicken. But every one of those were one ingredient foods.
You bet they were.
Yeah.
One ingredient. And that's what I ask people to do. Just bring it down to one ingredient. One ingredient. Eat a sweet potato, right? Eat a piece of chicken. Eat some broccoli, some cauliflower, some kale. And then think outside your box and get the kids involved. The research shows that our children want to be in the kitchen with their parents. They want to learn how to cook. I've been a single mom for 18 years. When my kids were little, they're grown now, I was so stressed. I didn't want them in the kitchen. They made it even worse for me. But I did not do them any favors by not getting them in the kitchen. We're raising a whole generation of kids who don't know how to cook.
Yeah.
And even these adults don't. I have a lot of patients who don't know, but they are learning. And it's real simple. You can just go online, right, and find a recipe. But I don't even use recipes. I just put things together. On my Instagram page, I show patients every week, or people every week.
And you probably have an incredible following. People love recipes.
I do have a good following, which is interesting, because they don't realize that you can just chop up. I just call it refrigerator food. And whatever's in the refrigerator, I just fix it up and put it in a pan. I mean, it's not complicated. And once you start feeling better, then there's no stopping you. And I tell people, you weren't born sick, right? If you came, I don't know how old you are, but say you're 50 years old. If you came to see me.
You're a sweetheart. Thank you for that.
If you came to see me at 50 years old with autoimmune disease and migraine headaches and stomach issues and all of this, I tell patients every day, it took decades to turn this on for you, to turn this autoimmune disease on, or these headaches. It's not going to take, it's going to take longer than 5 weeks to get this turned around. But you're going to start feeling better in a week. And you know, if you can just cut out the top three: gluten, dairy, sugar, gluten, dairy, sugar, gluten, dairy, sugar. Those are the three top devils right there.
Okay. Folks, you hear that? Now, Dani, there are people watching right now that are sick.
Yes.
You know, I mean, they call all the time asking for prayer.
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying get rid of gluten. Gluten's in almost all of the breads.
Gluten is in everything: packaged, processed, bagged, canned, fake. Now listen, here's the beauty of gluten. Listen about gluten. Jesus ate gluten when he walked this earth. Jesus had gluten in his wheat. Jesus had 3 strands of wheat. 3 strands of wheat. In America, now we have 25,000 strands of hybridized wheat in the United States.
Nothing like
25,000.
Like it was.
We're not eating anything like what Jesus ate.
Yeah.
Jesus's wheat was tall and golden and blew in the wind. Ours is about 18 inches tall and white, and it was bred with no pun intended, with extremely high gluten content in it. Gluten means glue. Jesus's bread was very dense and thick and crumbly, right? Gluten means glue in Latin. It makes foods fatter, fluffier, and softer, which is exactly what it's done to the United States population. As simple as that. And it was added in excess in the 80s and 90s to food because it acts like morphine in your body. This is why if you and I went to Cracker Barrel and we ordered biscuits, you can eat 3 biscuits before you ever even know what happened, because it's addictive. And then the more you eat, the more you want. And your blood sugar does this and it crashes. Gluten is only naturally in 3 things: barley, wheat, and rye. But we have added it to everything. It is in your soy sauce. It's in almost 100% of all soy sauces.
The food companies are trying to addict people.
You bet they are.
Yeah.
If you don't think the food industry is controlling your health, you are sadly mistaken. There is a reason that your food at one big chain with those biscuits tastes the same in Franklin, Tennessee as it does in San Diego, California. It's a lab experiment. You're a lab experiment. I'm a lab experiment. That food is made to taste the same across the country. If you get your food out of a drive-through window, right, your food tastes the same here as it does in Detroit, Michigan, because it was made in a lab and it is addictive. Yeah. And so we have got to bring it back to basics. One ingredient foods. Gluten is highly addictive, and it's in everything. We love it. I love gluten. But if I eat gluten, my joints hurt terribly. Yeah. So you have to do some education. What is gluten? What is gluten in? There's so much information out there. Get rid of it. Yeah. You bet.
Let's move along. On the next one you talked about was sugar. I was in Dominican Republic last week. We bought sugar for the people, but I noticed that the sugar that we got, I wasn't the one that bought the groceries, but they, but anyway, we bought rice and beans and oil and stuff like that. When we got the sugar wasn't processed like it was in America. It was more brown.
That's right.
They have the sugar cane, and I think they cook the juice out. But here in America, they just totally process this until it's a white powder, just like cocaine, or more addictive.
It's the same. Gluten, dairy, sugar, the three white devils. They are processed white.
Gluten, dairy, and sugar.
Dairy, people, what? So for me, the hardest thing to cut out was dairy.
Yeah, I love cheese.
Because I love cheese. Yeah. And I love all cheese. Stinky cheese, soft cheese, I love cheese. But if I eat cheese, cow cheese, and goat cheese, my hands hurt. It's joint pain for me. And that's how my lupus shows up for me, is in joint pain. Especially with COVID right now. We should not be eating any dairy at all. And it is as simple as that, because what is COVID? It's an inflammatory response in the lungs.
And that's what kills people is the inflammation,
right?
You
bet. Yeah. What is dairy? Gunky, thick. It blocks up the sinuses, the lungs, the bronchial tubes. It's extreme. And I tell patients, just consider it and pretend that it's cow snot. That's all it is thick and gunky like cow snot.
And I hate that description, but it's accurate. Yeah.
It is accurate.
And that'll help you get rid of it.
You bet it will. And if you have any sort of asthma or bronchitis or pneumonia issues or sinus issues, dairy is not your friend. Or skin issues, eczema, rosacea, dermatitis, those many times are related to dairy.
Well, I've been eating clean for a couple of months.
Good.
Been eating low carb, but one of the things that I haven't done is I haven't eliminated dairy. I've still been eating dairy, but I found that my advanced age of 50, we'll call it what you call it. It's significantly more than that. But anyway, when I lay down at night and go to sleep, my hip joints hurt.
You bet they do.
Because I know it's inflammation. High blood pressure is inflammation. So I've got to eliminate dairy when I leave here.
Yes, you do. Yeah. 100%. And that's everything. Cottage cheese, sour cream, butter, ice cream, yogurt, right? Yogurt's not your friend. Yogurt raises your blood sugar up drastically. And so we can get into this debate for 4 hours. But the bottom line is food will heal you or kill you. Simple as that. And you have got to make smart decisions, and it's baby steps. You can't rip the Band-Aid off and throw all the food out in the house. I understand that. As you run out of the inflammatory food in your house, you do the research and you bring in one new thing, one new fresh thing, right? Figure out what's in season in Franklin, Tennessee. Figure out what's in season in Portland, Oregon, or Australia, right? What's in season, and start eating in season, one ingredient food. Baby steps, but those top three are big ones for inflammation. Yeah. And like you said, all chronic disease has an inflammatory root.
I need to interrupt you because we've got just a little bit of time left in this show. We'll have you back next week. Talk about your book that's coming out, Dani.
I signed a publishing deal this week, and so the book will be out in 2021. The ebook will come out earlier. The audiobook will come out earlier, but it will be out next year, 2020, which is coming up very soon. Wild and Well, Dani's 6 Common Sense Steps to Radical Healing, and this goes over, the first whole section is on trauma. Actually, childhood trauma, things that happen in your childhood that can affect your long-term health. And then the whole rest of the book is on eat well, sleep well, move well, poop well, decrease stress, community.
So this is not out yet.
Not out yet.
How does somebody connect with you right now if they want to ask you questions or come see you? I hear it's almost impossible to see you. You're so busy, but
there's a little bit of a wait, but we definitely, DaniWilliamson.com is our website, and you can go straight to the website, sign up for my newsletter. I send out a great newsletter every week, DaniWilliamson.com. Dani Williamson Wellness, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I do a free health show every Sunday night on Facebook. It's Facebook Live.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then we transfer it to YouTube every Monday morning. So all of my video, it's called Sunday Night Service with Dani, and all those videos are on YouTube lined up, and we have every topic.
And what's the name of your YouTube channel?
Dani Williamson Wellness.
Okay.
Same thing on Instagram, same thing on Facebook. So, and DaniWilliamson.com is the website. So you can reach out to us there. We give out a ton of free education every single week.
Dani, thank you so much for being on. We'll have you on again next week. Thank you so much for sharing this. Folks, hang on. We'll be right back in just a minute. Friends, I've just returned from the Dominican Republic, and it's a beautiful country with great resources, beautiful beaches. There's 1,000 miles of the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean around the island. It's on the island of Hispaniola, which a third of it is Haiti, and the other 2/3 is the Dominican Republic. It's situated right between Cuba and Puerto Rico, and it's a beautiful island. But there are so many poor people there. We visited the village of Matamemon, and in this village, there are about 3,000 people, and most of them very, very poor. The average wage is about $1 per hour for those that can find work. They work in the sugarcane fields, and they get $1 per hour to work, and they work, 12 hours a day just to get by. The people there are very friendly. But there's no drinking water in the village. In most of these poor villages in the Dominican Republic, they don't even have a church. Well, some good friends of mine, Dr. Dan Hale and Antonia Valdez, started church in this village about 6 weeks ago. And after 3 or 4 weeks, they were up to 20 people, 27 people. And when I was there just a week ago, we had 100 people under a tree hear me share the gospel of Jesus Christ. And many of them raised their hands to receive salvation. We went to a store in Santo Domingo, the capital, a day before, which is, about an hour and a half south of there, and got 2 vehicle loads of food. And we were able to feed 30 families while we were there. But the need is so great. Dr. Hale wants to put a clinic there. He's been providing free medical care and paying for the medicine out of his own pocket. And we've got a government official down there that is willing to give us land to build a church. And we can build a 1,200 square foot multi-purpose building using local labor in the Dominican Republic, as well as drill a well with a reverse osmosis water filtration system for about $25,000.
This gentleman here, Bienvenido, he is a surveyor, and he is responsible for a lot of land. And this city here is an hour and a half away. but there's land that is much, much closer to the main city, which is very, very valuable. And he is personally in charge of that property, and he said to us that it's up to him. He can show it to us, and we're talking about several acres. What I can easily visualize someday is starting with a church, after that a clinic, after that a school to take care of the small children, and then after that, who knows?
Can you imagine that, friends? We couldn't do nothing like that in America. It would cost us $150,000 or more. But when we do that, we can minister to the needs of these poor people. We can feed them. We can clothe them. We can share the gospel with them. We can educate them. We can give them free medical care. But we need your help. We need for you to either pray. That's the greatest thing you can do, is pray. And number two is partner. You can partner with us and send your resources to help those people down there. You see, many of you have lived a life of great success. You've got a tremendous amount of money put away. But what is that going to do for you in eternity? You can have a life of significance by sharing that money and helping us build a church and feed these poor people, bring them to Jesus Christ and meet their needs. You can leave a legacy. Friend, what do you want your legacy to be? I know of a person that died recently and had no children and had great resources that could have done everything that I'm talking about in the Dominican Republic. But when you die and don't leave it with anyone, the state gets that. Friends, if you have great resources, I'm asking you to consider praying about meeting the needs of the people in Dominican Republic. Again, we want to build a church. We want to dig a well and give them fresh water. We want to feed them. We want to clothe them. And we want to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with them. Won't you pray for us? Won't you partner with us? Won't you come alongside us and help us meet the needs of these beautiful people in the Dominican Republic? I'm going back in January and February, and I would love to be the conduit from God through you to the people of the Dominican Republic. Our email address is below. Our website is below. Our phone number is below. And our address is going to be right here, where you can send a tax-free gift to feed these people and help us build a church in Dominican Republic. Thank you so much for watching the program today. And if you don't know Jesus Christ, it's easy as ABC. Number A, admit that you're a sinner. B, believe in Jesus Christ. Believe that He died, was buried, and rose again to save you. And 3, confess your sins to Him, and He'll save you. Friends, I look forward to seeing you again next week on the next edition of In Your Corner, but I'll look more forward to hearing from you with your blessing for the people of the Dominican Republic.